Welcome in, everyone, a TGIF for one of the final times. We still have another podcast left for 2025, but Merry Christmas belatedly to everyone. And happy Boxing Day, I guess. He's Iron Mike, Scott Shapiro, and I'm merely Michael Spinks for the next 91 seconds. If you know Boxing Day, you know what I'm talking about there. If you don't, you're wondering where I'm going with it. Scott, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. You're making me laugh. I was wondering if you were going to be Buster Douglas or Michael Spinks, but I guess you're. I'm doing all right. I'm looking forward to racing heating up here this weekend, especially at the first racing track. Some good racing, of course, the opening day of Santa Anita, and hope everybody out there had a great holiday thus far, and probably has some time off to gamble on some horses until the new year.
On December 26th, you expect to see Santa Anita, but they are under flood advisory still today through this afternoon in Arcadia, California. Tremendous amount of rain there this week. So they got ahead of the forecast, did a good job on the scheduling, I think, in this particular case. And they will open on Sunday at Santa Anita. Now, the weather forecast for Saturday looks great, sunny and 59 degrees. And on Sunday looks great, sunny and 64. So this rain has a chance to clear out for 2 full days here after ending this afternoon, hopefully in Southern California. We're going to talk about some racing at Gulfstream and Santa Anita, as Scott mentioned. For those of you on our traditional podcast channels with audio and video, we like to share out your comments. Give your comments in the section here on X and on YouTube, and let us know what you think of the podcast and your picks for this weekend. We'd like to compare notes with you there. And for those of you listening on our audio channels, let's give you the list of races Scott and I will handicap over the next half hour or so. At Gulfstream Park on Saturday, the 27th, we're going to handicap 2 stakes races, the Abundantia Stakes and also the Mr. Prospector. Then 6 stakes races dot the marquee, including 3 grade 1s on Sunday, the 28th at Santa Anita. We'll start things off with the Mathis Mile in race number 5, the Laffit Pincay Jr. in race 6. Then we go to 4 straight stakes races 8, 9, 10, and 11, the Brea, the San Gabriel, the Malibu, and wrap with the American Oaks at the tail end of a big 11 race card on Saturday. $10,000 exactathon on the line this weekend when you bet with First Bet and Express Bet on Sunday at Santa Anita. Take down at least 5 exactas on the card, $2 minimum there, and you'll share in $5,000 in cash. And we also have another big prize also for the handicapper who gets the most in exacta plays during the course of the weekend. $10,000 in exactathon money up for grabs on Sunday at Santa Anita, and Saturday at Gulfstream Park. If you're playing there, we've got a 20% win bonus for you as well on Saturday playing Gulfstream Park. That means your win bets are increased by 20%. Up to, I believe, $25 on that promo. So be sure to take advantage of all of that. I'm a little rusty today, Scott, so hopefully you'll carry me through here. We need to put a little oil and squeak in. I think I ate myself into a coma over the last couple of days. So we'll try to see what we can do here in the handicapping ranks as we get to the Saturday races at Gulfstream Park. Race number 9, the Abundantia Stakes. You think, who's Abundantia? Not a big horse. Greek mythology, the goddess of abundance, and that's probably the story of my Christmas meals over the past couple of days. So Abundantia Stakes, race number 9. They go 5 on the turf in this one. Fillies and mares, $100,000 and a good field size in here. Who'd you end up with in race 9 at Gulfstream?
Yeah, I'm going to take a big swing in this race. I definitely understand the appeal of Love Appeals, who's taken on some pretty good competition and chips in off the freshening for Miguel Clement, and Moonspun, who came off a long layoff and won dominantly over the all-weather for Brian Lynch, but has good turf form as well. But I think the 7, La Amazonia, is a little bit intriguing here, moving back to the turf. Now, her lone win recently since moving into the Victor Barboza Jr. barn did come over the all-weather. But the 2 back on Halloween, I thought she ran pretty well. She was involved in the early pace. She was wide early. She was between rivals. And then she ended up out finishing the other speed horses, but those from off the pace just got a better setup and were better than her. But I think she's at 15-1 or anything close to it. You get Junior Alvarado up. She's got 2 seconds and 4 starts over this course. And I think she could be prominent early in a race that may set up a little bit better for her.
You'd mentioned Moonspun coming in on a 2-race win streak, but this horse will be stepping up in class and to the stakes ranks for the first time. Hall and Ice in here is certainly the class of the fields, made almost $1 million, a 10-time winner. But all of that has been on the dirt for Safi Joseph. You know, with Safi and Irad, you're going to take money on Hall and Ice if this one stays in the field on the turf. So you've got a shot to get that 15-1 and hold that price with La Amazonia, Scott's top pick here in the Abundantia Stakes. Let's switch gears now from Gulfstream 9 to Gulfstream 10. Next on the card, some very familiar names in the Mr. Prospector Stakes. Of course, this name for one of the great sires of all time, Mr. Prospector, with the distinction of siring Triple Crown race winners in all 3 legs of the Triple Crown. Fusaichi Pegasus won the Derby, of course. Tank's Prospect, the Preakness winner. And then Conquistador Cielo, Belmont Stakes winner, sired by Mr. Prospector. What a great sire he was. His stud fee in the 1980s, Scott, was $460,000 a pop in the 1980s. It's pretty good though, Mr. Prospector.
Man, I didn't know that that he stood for that much, and obviously I don't have to tell the listeners how much more a dollar was worth back then than now. That's incredible. Wow, that is actually complete news to me. You learn something every day with JPC. You might be rusty, you might be not hungry, but you're still providing quality information.
Let's talk about White Barrio in this particular spot. Of course, he won the Pegasus World Cup to start this year in a year that really hasn't gone well for him. He won the Go Sapper after that. Now, coming off a 3-way race losing streak, he was scratched on the track at the Breeders' Cup Classic. This vets at the racetrack there at Del Mar, and for the Breeders' Cup said he wasn't sound going to the gate for the Breeders' Cup Classic, so he was scratched. The connections widely disagreed with that and said that he's perfectly healthy. But we haven't seen White Barrio in a race since last August. And now as he tries to prepare for a title defense, perhaps in the Pegasus World Cup, to come back in the Mr. Prospector at 7 furlongs, it's the same race he rallied and ran second in last year. What do you make of White Barrio in here?
You know, we saw Skippy Longstocking off bad form come back off a little bit of a freshening at Gulfstream for the same connections and for the same trainer at least, and run better than maybe even the public expected. I have a hard time gambling on these types of horses as favorites coming off these poor efforts and just kind of questioning whether they're the same horse. But, I do think when I look at this race, he stands out amongst two. I mean, it looks like a 2-horse race between Knightsbridge and he. I just have questions whether, he's the same horse and whatnot. He lost this race last year off of a race where he won by 10 lengths, and we knew he was in good form building up towards that Pegasus World Cup. So I just don't think he's a very good wager when you think about it. He's down on the inside, but he certainly can win this race.
Let's take a look at him at his best when he won the Pegasus under Irad Ortiz. Irad will be back aboard on Saturday from the rail.
And they swing around the far turn. Saudi Crown yet to face a threat. He's a length and a half in front with 3 furlongs to go. White Barrio makes his move into second now. Moving up toward the inside, that stronghold from between horses, Mystic Dan, but he's dropping back. Trying to get underway is Locked. The favorite has a lot to do. He's warming to the task, 7 lengths off the lead, but the Grays are 1-2. And here comes Florida Derby champ White Barrio, looming up on the outside, and he powers right by Saudi Crown. White Barrio is opening up with 1/8 of a mile to go. Back to second is Saudi Crown, Skippy Longstocking, and Locked are next. But this is a tour de force of Pegasus World Cup to add to his Florida Derby and Breeders' Cup resume. White Barrio, sharp in victory.
One of those, when he's on, he's really on. When he's off, he's off. So we're going to see what we get out of White Barrio. His last 5 wins have averaged about 6 lengths in margin, including that one last year in the Pegasus World Cup. Final margin in that one was 6.25 lengths. You mentioned it's a 2-horse race with he and Knightsbridge, the Godolphin color bearer for Bill Mott. Knightsbridge was one of those horses when he debuted in 2023 at Churchill Downs. You thought he was a horse for the 2024 Triple Crown. He was dominant in his career debut. The 2024 season never really got uncorked for him after a return allowance win in late March. He was late getting back to the go and then kind of missed the rest of the Triple Crown season. We haven't seen him much in stakes company, but Knightsbridge is definitely a horse, a talented son, Nyquist, who can play at a higher level.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think the most encouraging thing is the addition of blinkers. I know it was over the mud, but seemed to move them forward. A lot of times these horses that win impressively on debut and then you don't see them again for a while, they don't ever really move forward off of that debut effort. But this is a horse that really has, despite having obvious soundness issues, he still is talented, and it seems like he's still moving forward. He ran second to a good horse in Inveigled when we saw him last. I know he was the favorite that day, but he battled. He really hasn't run bad races, and I just think he's in better form than White Barrio, pointing to the spot, it seems to me, and pointing to this meet this year. I don't know. I think if he's better price, he's a better bet for sure. We'll see how they bet on the race based on last time with Skippy Longstocking going off in that race. Not even it wasn't Hold My Bourbon the favorite in that race. It was a very
I think so, yeah.
race. But we'll see if White Barrio takes the amount of money we expect. If not, obviously it opens things up a little bit.
All right, Knightsbridge going to be Scott's top pick there, race number 10 at Gulfstream. Again, 20% win bonus on your win bets, up to $25 in returns when you play Saturday with First Bet and Express Bet for Gulfstream Park. Let's switch gears now to Santa Anita on Sunday, a rare Sunday handicapping for us here on the podcast, but such a big day at Santa Anita with the 6 stakes races, 3 of them in Grade 1 company. First up will be the Grade 2 Mathis Mile in race number 5. 1 mile on the turf here. This used to be the Mathis Brothers Mile. I don't know if the brothers broke up in here, but Larry and Bill Mathis, they were big furniture magnates in Oklahoma City. In fact, I bought all my furniture from them back in the day. I don't know why they have a race name for them in Santa Anita, but good racehorse owners over the years. They used to sponsor the Remington Futurity as well, sponsored this Mathis Brothers Mile over the years. Grade 2 company in here. We've got a field of 7. Maz is coming off a disappointing race last time out in the Hollywood Derby. I thought he would run well coming out of a second in the Twilight Derby in there. But there's another horse coming out of that Twilight Derby that I know you're interested in here, Scott. Tell us about your pick in here, Namarone.
Yeah, I'm laughing still at the Mathis brothers. I don't know if they broke up. Yeah, Namarone isn't a good price in here, but I've got some other prices on the day. So I just look at this field, and a lot of them are coming out of the the Hollywood Derby, where Salamis was the winner that day. We wanted to call him Salamis. I don't necessarily think that
Salami.
Salamis. I don't. And then a lot of others come out of the Let It Ride is what I really mean, though. That was in both, and the Let It Ride was an okay race. It's a restricted stake race. I think it was just all right. So I look, at that field, and I think it comes down kind of the horses that were exiting the Twilight Derby was a much better race, like you mentioned, Maz and Namarone. And I just think Namarone is a better horse. This horse went to Kentucky Downs. 14 horse field off the plane, and was made 7-2 against a really good field of runners. And some of those fields aren't that good, but that was a pretty good field. You had Giacosa, Plenta, solid 3-year-old overall turf horses. And then last time out, I thought ran fine, was definitely pulling. I think the addition of blinkers is going to help. John Sadler, the trainer, 20% first blinkers in turf routes over the last 5 years, 4 for 20. So I think Namarone with Pratt is just going to finally live up to the expectations they seemingly had when they brought him from overseas.
We're going to look at the video here of the Twilight Derby, and this is a classic blinkers on move here. The horse makes a little bit of a premature move, even if you look at the running lines, makes the front, ends up third, and then gallops out best past the field. This is strictly about the timing of the move and the focus and those sort of things. And almost always when a horse has a mistimed move, you're going to see a jockey change next time. There's nothing that's going to chap connections more than a mistimed move, and they almost always pull the plug. No offense to Hector Barrios in here, but Pratt rode this horse previously at Kentucky Downs, and when you can get Flavian Pratt in a Grade 2, you do so. So they get Pratt, they get the blinkers. Go back and watch the video here. Very nice win by Test Score. I'm not sure he beats he beats Test Score anyway, but he really runs a better race. And when you watch the gallop out, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Suddenly, Scipio comes under a ride in second. Test Score marching up, extreme outside. Namarone has saved every inch of ground, and he's got room on the inside. As the field turns for home, Namarone cuts the corner and takes the lead. Test Score out in the center of the course is closing stoutly now. Maz has surfaced through a narrow opening on the rail, but Test Score takes command in the final stages, and it will be Test Score in the Twilight Derby. Handridden to a 2.5 length win. Maz a good second. Namarone was third.
back up in him there. He ended up galloping out right with the top two in the race. And I think Namarone, with the blinkers on, with the return to Pratt, should find this company easier as well. Test score, an absolutely top class, a 3-year-old animal. So Namarone, top pick in here for Scott in race number 5, that being the Mathis Mile. If you're looking for a daily double play, perhaps pair him up in race number 6. That's next up. It's the Laffit Pincay Jr. Stakes. And for the one of the all-time leading jockeys in certainly Southern California history and North American racing history, field of 7 of them in here. Bob Baffert has a very strong hand to play in the Laffit Pincay. He's got Nisos. He's got Nevada Beach in here. Baffert also ends up, I think he has another one in here too, right? Or just 2? No, just 2 of the Bafferts in this particular spot. So, Scott, who do you like here? Is it down the Nisos and Nevada Beach? You like the Bafferts?
Yeah, and I'm not going to recommend playing that daily double here. This is where I got chalky on this card. Hopefully I can help out a little more later on here. But I don't think Nisos is going to lose in this field. You know, I worry about horses coming back from Breeders' Cup wins when they're, you know, and it's a softer spot, and it might be, and also, you know, but it's been almost 2 months. This horse is ready to run. Yeah. You know, this is the spot that makes sense. Bob wants to run him on the, you know, the opening day, big card at Santa Anita. He likes to win on those days, and this horse loves Santa Anita. So I don't think this is a case of this horse being entered in a softer spot than maybe you had hoped. I think Nisos rolls here against this level of competition.
Let's go back to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. The last time we saw Nisos, he had another stablemate to deal with, and he was able to run down Citizen Bull.
Citizen Bull on top by 2. With his stablemate Nisos starting to cut into the gap a bit in second. These two turn for home 3 lengths clear of stablemate Goal Oriented. Bob Baffert 1, 2, 3 here. Then Full Serrano and Tumbarumba. Chancer McPatrick has made ground on the far outside. Starting to close in, but a lot of work to do to catch these top 2 up front. Citizen Bull and Nisos. Nisos and Citizen Bull side by side and stride for stride. Who's it going to be, Nisos or Citizen Bull in the Dirt Mile? It is too close to call. Was it Nisos?
It was Nisos, and one of the good things about that for fans of that horse is he'd been so dominant in most of his wins. You never know what those kind of horses are going to do when they get looked in the eye. That was a stretch-long duel with a horse who was in good form in Citizen Bull, and really gutty performance in there by Nisos. A lot of times those horses that are brilliant, Scott, don't also have that moxie to win a race like that.
Yeah, we didn't know that he did. In fact, I mean, he ran a big second in the Churchill Downs. That was his only other defeat. And that was arguably one of the strongest fields of the year, if not the strongest field of any grade 1 in America. But we hadn't seen him win that dogfight, and Citizen Bull was certainly primed for a big effort and ran huge that day. So no disgrace there, only winning by a head. And like you said, probably good. And he's had almost 2 months to recover from it.
Let's go next up. Skip ahead 2 races to race number 8 on the card. The 7th, not a stakes, but we get to the 8th, the La Brea Stakes. 7 furlongs, grade 1 in here. 7 furlongs, an interesting distance because the field is 0 for 7 at 7 furlongs in this particular spot. A lot of times you say it's a specialist distance at 7/8 of a mile. We don't have that to kind of fall onto in this particular spot, but the La Brea Stakes, an outstanding field. And as we saw last year with Copian winning this race, and, you know, great ones over the years, very subtle, Spain, Indian Blessing. I mean, there have been some really good sprint fillies win this race over the years. I don't know that we've got any standouts in this particular spot. We do have 5G coming west from Florida for trainer George Weaver. Haven't seen that one since winning the Gulfstream Park Oaks. Usha's had some kind of undertones that she might have a lot of ability, but she floundered last time out in the Raven Run Stakes. Baffert's got Silent Law in here, second in the Santa Anita Oaks. He's also got one named Brilliantly, who I like quite a bit. I'll talk about her in just a bit, but Baffert's got 4 in here, and it's a race that he's won quite a bit over the years, as has Richard Mandela. Mandela's got Magnificat in here, so kind of the gang's all gathered in a big field of 11.
Yeah, this is quite a race for handicapping and gambling because, like you said, there's no real monster or standout in here. I think 5G is a little bit vulnerable. George Weaver, not necessarily a guy that's had success shipping from the East Coast to the West Coast off the bench in a race like this. In fact, you know, he's only 3 starters out there in Santa Anita the last 5 years, and they're all Breeders' Cup races. So it'll be interesting to see how she fares. Brilliantly, who you mentioned, has been training forwardly. I know you want to talk about that and has been bet heavily in all 3 of her races. I'm just worried about how this race is going to set up for her and for anyone involved early. Formula Rosa, a big player in here, definitely deserving 3-1 shot. But I'm going to hope for a change of tactics from the 11 horse, Silent Law, you mentioned is one of the Bafferts in here. This is a filly that's been on the lead in most of her races, but with all the speed signed on and her being to the outside, and most importantly, I think perhaps is the change in jockey to Joel Rosario, who is kind of a guy that's known to be one, able to relax horses as well as anybody, or over the course of his career. Oftentimes, rider jockeys go to him when they want to try to relax horses.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to happen in here. She could beat, she fits with this field on talent, though, regardless. I don't think she's run a bad race really on the dirt. Nope. And if she can relax a little bit off the pace, I think she can outfinish this field. So I'm going to try at what I expect to be a pretty good price, number 11, Silent Law. But I also like the Baffert horse that you're going to use a little bit.
Yeah, she's coming off a second in the Chillingworth behind Tamara, so she's taking on older horses. Same case for Formula Rosa, who comes off a second-place finish to Sweet Azteca in Stakes Company in the Rancho Bernardo back this past summer. But a horse who's been working with the males is kind of what I want to focus on, and that's number 6, Brilliantly. This 3-year-old filly has been working in company with the horse who's going to run Nevada Beach in the stakes a little bit later on the card. And Nevada Beach is, a high-class horse. Won the Grade 1 Goodwood Stakes at Santa Anita leading into the Breeders' Cup. Brilliantly made him look absolutely foolish in the morning. The rider on Brilliantly spent the entire length of the stretch looking back over his shoulder like saying, come on, get up here with me. We're supposed to finish on even terms. And she just wouldn't give an inch. I mean, she just absolutely worked monstrously. When Baffert has horses working this well, I just say go for it. You don't think. I know the pace scenario does not set up for a speed horse like this. I think there's a ton of speed in here. 7 furlongs. Maybe we question the distance. It maybe should be better at 6 or 6.5. But when the Baffert horses are working this well, I just don't even look at anybody else. I mean, she is absolutely working fabulously. You get Flavian Pratt the ride here. I really like Brilliantly in this spot. I'm going to go very bullish. I know you can look right at the past performances to say she just ran 3rd behind Ortiz Cat in Allowance Company, and you can certainly make that case. She was down on the inside that day. She'll be out a little bit more in the 6th post, but as fast as she is, I don't know. I mean, there is some speed to her inside, but I don't know if anybody's as fast as her to the inside. She may end up on the inside again, being able to clear over and go into the fence. We'll see what Pratt wants to do with her and how far down he wants to get. But I think this filly by Uncle Mo is just training absolutely to her name Brilliantly. And I think she's going to be the one to beat in here. I'm using her, Silent Law, Magnificat, Formula Rosa, some respect to the outside of the gate, and going 7/8 of a mile. Those outside posts, I think, have a little bit of an edge. So I think the horse you've got on the far outside is actually drawn pretty well in here. So I'm taking Brilliantly. You've got Silent Law. We've got a Baffert Exacta, and neither one is with Usha, who might be the shorter price of the Bafferts in this particular spot. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to bet in this race. This is a tough one. I wouldn't want to be the morning line maker in this particular spot because I'm not quite sure where they're going to go.
Yeah, I thought this was a very, 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 and 3 varies difficult morning line to make. 5Gs is a very challenging horse to line first and foremost. I do think the Glad horse is correctly morning lined as the favorite. Although you never know, one of the Bafferts could take all the Baffert steam. Certainly, your filly, I'd be very surprised if she isn't on the lead. I wish I could bet on that. But whether and she took the blinkers off last time and still showed that speed. So I am not going to let her beat me either. I could see maybe going too deep in here and moving on if you're playing horizontals, because I think a lot of people are going to spread.
Big X Factor race, 7 furlongs. Again, the field 0 for 7 at the 7/8 mile trip there in race number 8, the La Brea. If that is a spread, we get the race number 9 next up, the San Gabriel, going 1 1/8 on the turf. Grade 3 company here. We've only got a field of 9 in here, so it's not a massive field. No, there's 11, actually. I'm sorry. There's 11, an extra page here that I didn't see. So we do have another big field size. So as you're talking about potentially, getting a couple horses of coverage at least in the La Brea Stakes, how deep do we want to go in a San Gabriel that also doesn't seem to have any standout kind of heavyweight favorites?
Oh, muting. Sorry, I was on mute.
There you go.
I was wondering, you were looking around. I was sorry about that, folks.
I was looking for my mute button, thinking I muted you. So look, we're rusty, folks. This is the bottom line. We're coming off the holiday.
Well, I think the favorites first and foremost are vulnerable in here. You got Stay Hot, who's 4-1. I think will go off as one of the favorites. Lukewarm, but this horse hasn't won without Lasix since August the 4th of 2024, and only has one win since then, and has taken money. IRAD will be aboard. He's going to take a lot of money. I think he's a little camera shy. And Astronomer, I think, might go off favor because he had one of those trips that everybody loves betting these days. They used to be secretive when the videos were harder to find. Now, when horses get boxed in, they get hammered, and this horse definitely did. I mean, it was not a very good trip, but he hasn't won in ages. So I'm going to let them bet those. I'm going to try to get the jump with a couple of horses, namely number 9, Cabo Spirit, who's been pretty good to me. And he didn't, last time it was Rispoli, you rode him, who was not overly aggressive. I think Mike Smith is going to be aggressive with this horse, and I think it should work out. I think he's a very good play, to key up and down if he stays at his 8-1. When he's allowed to be forward, he hits the board almost every time at a pretty good price. But I'm gonna try to win the race with Cabo Spirit at 8-1.
Field of 11 has 5 wins on the year, but they're all the same kind of horses in form. They're all running 2, 3, 4, 5 in tight finishes in turf races. Somebody gets the turn to take the picture this time, and Scott thinks it's going to be Cabo Spirit under Mike Smith. Let's go from the 9th to the 10th race, the Malibu Stakes. Arguably, this is the feature race on opening day at Santa Anita amongst all the different grade ones. $300,000 grade one, and you have common names that we're used to seeing in the 3-year-old ranks throughout the course of the season. Most popular division in racing, of course, the 3-year-old males. Some of these horses were Triple Crown types, some certainly on the Triple Crown trail. Madicket rode in here for Baffert, Cornucopian for Baffert, Barnes and Goal Oriented also for Baffert. He's also got Midland Money in here, so he's got 5 of them. We managed to find 5 non-Bafferts to run in here as well, which doesn't always happen in the 3-year-old stakes in Southern California, so good job by the racing office there. Is it Baffert? Is it somebody else? And if it is Baffert, which one?
Yeah, it's going to be the odds on if they had prop bets in racing available, Baffert, I'd say was what price would Baffert be in this race to win it with his 5 versus the rest of the field?
85%, 90?
Yeah, I would lay a lot.
Yeah.
That said, you got Cornucopian, who's the wild card. He fits that profile though of horses that I worry ran too well first out. We talked about that a little bit ago with Knightsbridge, who I don't think did. You got Barnes, who's likely to be the favorite. He wowed early. He's been good. I don't think he's been great. I wonder about the quality of the field in the Perryville. Captain Cook bounced big time, and Owen Almighty hasn't been the same. So maybe that race looks a little bit better than on paper than it did, in terms of quality. I think Goal Oriented has been facing the best horses in this field. And again, I think he draws really well. You spoke about the outside trip in terms of the La Brea. When you take a blinkers off Bob and you cut them back and you have that outside trip, everything should set up for this horse, assuming he's, got that quickness in him to want the short distance. He won on debut in his only start sprinting, but I don't see why the cutback shouldn't work okay for him. I thought he ran fine in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, which you showed before, with Nisos and Citizen Bull. Just didn't really set up for him. And he was a 3-year-old taking on older that day, while all these other 3-year-old Bafferts were ducking the Breeders' Cup. So I just think Goal Oriented is the best amongst these. And if he takes to the turn back, I think he's going to be ultra tough.
You mentioned Barnes and maybe that race in the Perryville being, a little bit of fool's gold. And I kind of agree with you. Watching the video of that race, look at the times. I mean, they went from 9-4 to 1:23-2. So it was almost 14 seconds, 13-3 for the final 1/8 of a mile, which is exceptionally slow at the back end of a sprint race. And when you watch him open up here by 9, you're not going to get this visual impression that he's flying. Watch the come home here from Barnes winning the Perryville.
Round the far turn, and Rolando is last. Barnes is putting ahead in front. Taylor's version still there to the inside. Barnes to the outside, and that pair will come to the top of the stretch, contesting the lead. A gap of 5 lengths. Captain Cook is fighting his way up the inside, but still in 3rd position. Owen Almighty, then Rolando. Barnes has the lead. Captain Cook tries to get going, still 4 lengths away. Owen Almighty's there to the outside. They're all chasing Barnes. Barnes into the final furlong of the Perryville. Barnes by 5. Back to Captain Cook. Owen Almighty. It is all Barnes. Jose Ortiz. much the best in the Perryville. Barnes to win it.
Hard ridden out all the way even to the wire when they put the stick away finally because he was drifting. He's pumping like crazy through the finish line there to get what they got. And again, 13-3 over the final eighth of a mile isn't anything. I think the other horses just had all their chips in the front of the table or the middle of the table at the top of the stretch, and there was nothing in there. I'm with you. I think he's a major bet against in this particular spot. I won't be surprised if Cornucopian comes back and runs huge fresh. I mean, that wouldn't be a shock. And then there's Maddocket Road, who's just kind of good, you know? I mean, he's not great, but he's just kind of always right there, and he runs good races. I thought he ran really well in the Pate Mile, back in the Woody Stevens as well. The second time to Saratoga, making 2 trips east in the summer, maybe got to him there. He's fresh now. Wouldn't be surprised if Maddocket Road runs a good one. You get Irad to ride there. It probably hurts your price some, but I think there are better options than Barnes in here. Of all the Baffords, he's like third or fourth in the 5-horse pecking order for me in this particular spot. I actually like Cornucopian better than him, Goal Oriented, and Maddocket Road. I'd put Barnes as the 4th best Baffert in here.
That should work out well for you because he's he's the name horse of the bunch. You know, he's been he was the Derby favorite back in January. He's got a lot of big numbers. I am not overly excited to wager on him either, but I think Cornucopian's upside is obviously there. Midland money's been good. You made a good point about Maddocket Road, but Goal Oriented will be a bet for me if anywhere near the 5-1. I'll just play it and hope that the turn back with the blinkers off is going to work out as well as I expect it to with that outside draw.
All right, let's move ahead to race number 11 on the Sunday card at Santa Anita. Field of 11 in the Grade 1 American Oaks. The old Hollywood Park race is batted down and bedded down at Santa Anita now for about a decade plus. So Santa Anita, the home of the American Oaks Stakes, and 3-year-old fillies, as you would suspect in here. At Scylla, the interesting X factor in here. First time for Richie Baltus. This horse coming from overseas and has run in some good races. Third in the Group 1 Matrix, comes out of the Sun Chariot. Last time out at Newmarket. Certainly European class in here. This horse ran in the Irish 1000 Guineas back in the spring. Top mile race for the 3-year-old fillies back that time of year. At Scylla, very interesting in this particular spot as she gets her first domestic taste of racing action here. What do you make of her and the rest of the field?
Yeah, I mean, it's all a big question the question of whether she fires her best shot from overseas here first time in the States for Richard Baltus and Tiago Pereira, who you could argue, I think he's a fine rider. Whether it shows a lot of content here with the options out there, that's the question. If this filly was, maybe they're looking for a price. Again, not a knock on Tiago. He's a very capable rider, but more so just when you look at the idea and the intent, this is a filly that's kind of a standout in terms of class, not attracting one of the big riders I find interesting, not willing to toss her outright over it. But there's a price I like in here, number 6, Take a Breath. This is a daughter of Bated Breath that's been in the Mark Glatt barn since the summer. And the first start was a very good one in the Del Mar Oaks, where she came from way out of it after a slow start, and finished 4th by less than 2 lengths to Velocity and Lush Lips. Thought process, good field that day, better than what she encounters here, other than at Cilia. And then you've got the first level allowance event where she had a major excuse that day as the favorite, tossed that race. And then the auto miss, caught wide that day. She didn't do much running, but you wanted to be inside like usual on the turf. So I think with Irad might hurt the price a little, but I think this filly who's taking money in the States has some more upside than maybe the first 3 races showed.
Seems like the Southern California Filly and Mare Turf races this year have been dominated by horses coming from the East. Graham Motion really has had a great year bringing horses from the East or Midwest to California. Layoff Stables will send Cliffs West for trainer Cherie DeVoe and get Jose Ortiz. First time in a stakes race for this Omaha Beach filly, who's interesting to me. Totally Justified. Anna Mia takes over the training of this Justified filly from trainer Rusty Arnold and gets Juan Hernandez to ride. Another one coming from East to West, and they just seem to have had some edge in the Philly Mare Turf division in Southern California this year. So Scott's got to take a breath. I'm going to take a shot with Totally Justified or Cliffs in here. I'm going to take the Shippers, and also I'm going to include Atsilla. That European form for me in a race where I'm not narrowed down. The difference between going 2 deep and 3 deep isn't massive on a ticket. So that's not a bad place to add an additional horse if you're 2 deep to go to 3 deep. So I'm going to go ahead and take that shot in there and go with those runners in the American Oaks. that'll wrap up our handicapping for this weekend. Opening day at Santa Anita coming up on Sunday. Again, forecast for sunny and 64 degrees on Sunday. Sunny skies on Saturday as well to help dry things out. Certainly the turf course will have some give to it, Scott, when we get to handicapping, and maybe that'll help some of those Europeans and horses who have some experience over the grass. But I would imagine on Sunday, even after 2 days of dry conditions at the turf course, definitely going to have some give to it.
Yeah, definitely would agree with that sentiment. Maybe it helps a horse like take a breath. Totally justified. I'll just piggyback that to have the show. Interesting horse. They spent $775. You don't see Anita get those types of big ticket items all that often, and they give her a little time, send her out here for this race very specifically. And the most interesting thing is the fact that she attracts Juan Hernandez, a barn that does not necessarily, David Mia was a former assistant, I believe, for Richard Baltas, but it's not as if they're a barn out there that usually would attract the top rider.
All right. Good information there as we head towards the weekend. I want to wish everybody good luck. Be sure to play with First Bet and Express Bet this weekend. A lot of great racing action going on today on Friday, Boxing Day around the country. The Pippin Stakes at Oaklawn Park today. We've got stakes action down at Gulfstream throughout the course of the weekend as well. Mandatory payouts to tell you about coming up on Saturday. In mandatory payout pick six situations for the jackpot bets, over $200,000 in the carryover at Turf Paradise and over $200,000 in the carryover at Turfway Park. Both of those are mandatory payouts on Saturday. So be sure to take in all that action. Scott, final word for the weekend.
Yeah, those are definitely pools that should be quite meaty, especially that Turfway Park one. I would expect a massive pool with their field sizes on Saturday night. I will be focused on the Gulfstream Park Saturday card. I have a blog with some win plays to hopefully help you and help my wallet on using that win boost. And then obviously be locked in on Sunday, not only for the NFL, but for this outstanding card at Santa Anita.
All right, we'll be back next week with the final podcast of 2025. Again, happy holidays to everybody out there. We'll talk to you next week.